Hello everybody, Clayton here at eTrailer.com. Here at eTrailer, we install, test, and review a lot of different products to help you as a customer make a more educated decision before your purchase. Today, we're going to be working on a 2018 Ford Focus. We're going to be taking a look at, and I'll be showing you how to install RoadMasters Base Plate Kit with removable arms. Our key components of our flat towing setup consist of our base plate, and that's going to be the key attachment point to our vehicle's frame, allowing us to attach our next component, which is going to be our tow bar. And this attaches to our motorhome and then to the base plate attached to our car. We're now going to have our safety chains. These are going to keep the vehicle attached to the motorhome if the tow bar were to become disconnected. Then next we're going to have our diode wiring, and this is going to allow us to get all of our necessary lighting functions to our towed vehicle, allowing everybody behind us to know what our intentions are. We're going to have our supplemental braking system, and this is going to apply the brakes in our towed vehicle whenever we push the brakes in our motorhome. And it is proportional. That way, however hard you push the brakes in the towing vehicle gives the same braking pressure to the towed vehicle. We're also going to have a battery disconnect, and all that does is disconnect the battery, so we're not draining the battery whenever we are flat towing. And that's pretty cool. It's as simple as a flip of a switch, and we are going to have a stoplight switch, and that's going to send a signal to our transmitter in our braking system. Disconnecting our tow bar and all of our other components from our base plate are going to be super simple. We'll start by unplugging our diode wiring. We can take our safety chains off. We can remove our pins for our tow bar. And we can take out our removable arms. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. This is what our base plate is going to look like every day whenever we aren't flat towing. Really, nothing's going to be too visible, nothing protrudes too far out of our front fascia other than our breakaway switch. One thing I do like is that our safety chain tabs are built in. Our kit also comes with prongs for our wiring and a tab for our breakaway switch. So we're not going to have to pick up any other long brackets or anything like that to get our wiring and our breakaway switch mounted to the base plate. Our base plate is going to be a steel construction, so it's going to hold up really well for a long time. It also has a really nice black powder coat finish to keep it looking nice and help it resist rust and corrosion. Adding our arms to our base plate is going to be super easy. We just want our ring and our tab facing up. We'll push that in, turn it 90 degrees to the inside, and it's nice and locked in. You don't have to worry about that going anywhere. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. And we can now hook up the rest of our flat towing components in the reverse order we took them apart. And whenever you're hooking up to your base plate, you want to make sure that you cross your safety chains. This is just going to keep a little bit more tension on them and keep them from hanging down on the ground. And another very important thing that you'll need to do is look at getting a high-low adapter. You want the difference in our base plate height and the height on your motorhome's hitch within 3 inches. So the best way to measure that is going to be to measure from the ground to the base plate opening on your towed vehicle, and from the ground to your pinhole on your motorhome, and you can pick up the according high-low adapter here at eTrailer. Once you get your base plate put onto your Focus, it's going to be really easy for everyday use. But in terms of installation, I'm not going to lie to you, this one is pretty hard. You're going to have to take your fascia off. There is going to be some drilling. You don't have to do any welding, but you are going to have to drill quite a few holes. With that being said, I'll walk you through how to get it installed now. To start our installation, we want to pop the hood on our Focus. Then we're going to come up to our front air dam here. There's going to be 2 plastic fasteners that we need to remove. We're just going to do this with a trim panel tool. We'll come under that edge and just pry up a little bit, get our tool underneath, and remove our fasteners. You can also do this with a small flat-bladed screwdriver. We now need to remove 3 T30 Torx bits. We're going to have this one here, and if you follow down here behind that air dam, we're going to have that one there, and there'll be one in the same spot on the other side. Again, we're using a T30. Now we're going to have 2 T30 Torx bits that we need to remove to get our headlight off. One's going to be right here, and one's going to be right next to that other one we just removed. We just want to carefully lift out on our headlight. You want to make sure you're not scratching your paint. We're going to have our electrical connector. On the bottom side, there's going to be a little tab and pull out. Again, we're going to push down on this tab right here and then pull out on that connector. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. We're now ready to move into our wheel wells and remove a few fasteners. On the bottom here, we're going to have a T30 Torx bit we need to remove. And as we work our way up, there's going to be a T27. And here in the corner, we're going to have a plastic push pin. Now I want to move underneath of our focus. We're going to have 3 push pin fasteners right here. I'm going to take that small flat blade screwdriver. Just kind of work under that lip a little bit. Just kind of turn that screwdriver. That'll allow us to get our trim panel tool in. And remove our clip. You're going to be removing a fastener right here, and then down here in the corner. Now we want to come to our hood latch lever. We're going to pry up on this tab here. Then with a little bit of slack, we can move our lever over and get that wire out of our release lever, just like so. We're going to have to come back and remove a couple more T30 Torx bits on each side, and this could vary with your model. As you can see, ours does have them. Before we remove our fascia, we want to add some tape to our body lines just to protect that from any possible scratching when our bumper's coming off. Now this isn't required, but is highly suggested. With an extra set of hands on the other side, we just want to grab our fascia, kind of pull out on these corners, and then work our way towards the middle. You do want to be careful not to break any fasteners in the process. We can set our fascia off to the side in a safe location. We're now going to have 2 T30 Torx bits behind our fascia here that we need to remove. They're just going to be along that bumper beam. Do the same thing on the other side. With our screws removed, we can just pull out on our louver. Just like so. This will not be reinstalled. We're now ready to remove 3 T30 Torx screws on each side. We're going to have 2 down here on the bottom and 1 on our fender liner. Now this one is pretty hard to get into, but if you get a 1/4 inch drive ratchet, you should have no problem getting inside that wheel well. We now need to remove our washer fluid tank. We're going to have a 10mm bolt right here, and then 1 on the back side and side of our fender. Get those removed now. With our hardware removed, we now want to pull everything off of our tank, including our wiring. To do so, you're going to push down on these tabs and pull out. We just set this off to the side. Then if you do want to plug those up, you can grab a little butyl tape and just put it over there to keep it from leaking. We now need to remove our horn. We're going to disconnect the electrical connection for that. Again, push down on that tab, pull out on your wiring. And under here, there's going to be a bracket with a 10mm bolt on it. We can take our horn off and set it off to the side. Our instructions are going to tell us to drill a hole here and then enlarge that, but this is hardened steel, so it's going to be a lot easier to grab a Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel and cut a square right here. You want to kind of center it with your frame rail. It's going to be about 1.5 inches wide, about 2 inches tall. With our square mostly cut out, we can just grab a hammer, just kind of tap that back into the frame, and grab some pliers and just fish that out of there. Now I just want to come back with a die grinder bit and just kind of clean up all these edges. With our edges cleaned up, we just want to hit it with some clear coat to protect all those open edges. I'm going to repeat that same process over on the passenger side. We now want to disconnect our wiring on the driver's side. Before we do that, I'm going to grab a trim panel tool and just pull out these clips. It'll give us a little bit more room to work when we're lifting up our brackets. There's going to be 1 clip here and then 1 on our frame rail. We're going to come back down to our plugs and push in our little tab. We'll pull back on our wiring. The wiring disconnected, we want to push that side out, then lift up on our wiring and just hang it here where our headlight was. We now want to grab our driver's side frame bracket. You want this angled piece kind of facing out, aligning with your bumper beam. I'm going to slide this up here. And we can just grab a couple of our 3/8 bolts and just slide that through the hole in our frame rail. You do want to make sure to add some red Loctite to all of our hardware. You want to make sure to add the provided 3/8 lock washers before you thread this into your handle nut. We now want to grab our provided handle nuts, kind of just straighten this and bend out a little bit, and we're going to align that with all of our hardware that we just added. Once you catch those threads, you just want to get it nice and hand tight, and then we'll come back and do these next two. We now want to grab our plate with the nut on the end. We're going to slide that through the hole that we cut, and just kind of drop it down. And it should look like that over the hole in our frame rail. We now want to grab our 1/2" bolt with a split lock washer. We're going to come underneath of our bracket, slide that through the hole in our frame rail, and then line that up with our plate and start threading it in. We now need to trim this panel right here. I marked it following the diagram in our instructions. Now I just want to come back with a 15mm socket and tighten down our 3 bolts on the top. This one on the inside you are going to need a wrench for. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. Then we need to come back and tighten down our bolt on the bottom using a 3/4. We now just want to come back and torque down our hardware to the amount specified in our instructions. We're now ready to break off our handles from our handle nuts. Just kind of want to shake them around a little bit. And they should break off just like that. If you're having trouble doing this, you can just grab some 10 snips and cut them as close to your hole as possible. We now need to remove the hardware that holds in our computer. We're going to have 3 8mm bolts. We're going to have one here, and we're going to have one kind of back along that frame rail like the washer fluid tank was. We're going to have one more on the inside of our fender liner right up here. With our bolts removed, we can just kind of slide this down and out of the way. We now want to grab our trim panel tool. We're just going to pry our wiring off the top of our frame rail. And we will be doing this on both sides. We're now going to be enlarging this hole to a 1/2". I'm going to grab a couple drill bits, a little bit bigger than this hole, and slowly work my way up to that 1/2" bit. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. We're going to come back and hit that with some clear coat. When we have those holes opened up, we want to grab our bracket, slide it over our frame rail like so. We'll lift up on our wiring and then drop our hardware through. We're going to use a 1/2" bolt with a split lock washer. Now we're going to grab a handle nut and tighten it down. Now I want to grab a 3/4" socket and just snug that down. But before you get it nice and snug, you want to make sure that this bracket is straight with your frame rail. Now I want to torque this down to the amount specified in our instructions. In the process, you want to make sure that that bracket doesn't slide on you, and you want to keep it nice and square to the frame rail. We now want to grab a 1/2" drill bit. We're going to drill that out. Now I'm going to grab our 1/2" bolt with the neck. We're going to add a little bit of red Loctite. We're going to slide that back through that hole and add a handle nut on the other side. We're also going to be adding our 1/2" spacer. With our handle nut started, now I want to grab that 3/4" socket and get it tightened down. And we're going to come back and torque it down to the amount specified in our instructions. Now I want to repeat that same process over on the passenger side. With an extra set of hands, we can lift our base plate cross section up into place. And we just want to slide our hardware through the top hole. Just want to get that nice and hand tight. Now I want to grab our driver's side support brace and our bracket with our longer bolt. We're going to take this, feed it up through our wheel well, and meet it on the other side through our brace, like so. And then we're going to add our flat washer and our hex nut. Then we want to grab our 1/2-inch bolt with the flat neck. We're going to slide that through our base plate and our bracket, met on the back side with our support brace, a split lock washer, and a hex nut. We now just want to lift up on our support brace, grab a 1/2-inch drill bit. With our hole opened up, we can slide our bolt through. And on the back side, we're going to add a split lock washer and our hex nut. Using a 19mm socket and wrench, we're going to tighten down our bolts. We are now ready to come back and torque down our hardware to the amount specified in our instructions. We'll repeat that on the other side. We are now ready to lift our computer module back up into place. We're going to reinstall our hardware in the reverse order we took it apart. Now I want to make sure to plug back in all of your wiring. We just want to take our new hardware, slide it through the hole in our horn bracket, and then through the according hole in our base plate. Now we're just going to tighten this down using a 14mm socket. We need to reinstall our washer fluid tank with the new hardware. One will go here, and one is going to go back in that back corner. As far as installing our base plate, we are totally complete there. We still have to trim our fascia, but before we do that, we're going to put on the rest of our flat towing components, and I strongly suggest doing that at home. It's going to make it a lot easier to work because you're not going to have to work around the fascia. We now have our fascia reinstalled in the reverse order we took it apart. I just wanted to show you where we actually trimmed. It will vary with your model, but you just kind of have to trim these little tabs out in your fascia right through here. And if you mount your wiring down here, you will have to trim a little bit further than listed in the instructions. And if you come over to this side, it's kind of the same thing. We did have to trim out one tab for our breakaway switch, but it turned out pretty nice. And you can trim this with tin snips or a Sharp utility knife. With everything tested and hooked up, we're now ready to hit the road. That's going to do it for our look at and our installation of RoadMasters Direct Connect Base Plate Kit with removable arms on our 2018 Ford Focus.